go over your special gift and talent. All right. Here we go. Speed review. 1 in belief is the title of the chapter. The church is united in that she has a common belief to unite people in. This is the first of the 4 marks of the church, which are her essential qualities that come from Christ.
Is this going to be like more of this section of notes?
What?
I have this section.
Yeah, that could be enough for today. Okay. And that know the distinction between believing in God and not believing in the church. We don't believe in the church. We believe in God who made the church. The church is a product of his work. So lesson 1 was on the unity of the church the goal of the church is to unite all people. This makes her a sacrament of communion, outward sign of inward grace, a sign that all people can be united to God and that this unity will be fulfilled in the next life. And here we have St. Peter's Square where St. Peter was crucified. A lot of people have been forgetting this slide on their mind maps, okay? I piggyback Sacrament of Communion with Sacrament of Salvation, a sign of all those who are being saved by God's love. Lesson 2, we talked about creeds. The word creed comes from the Latin word credo, I believe. There's 2 major creeds. The Apostles' Creed goes back to Rome, the year 150. It was what a person said before they got baptized. The Nicene Creed is much longer. It's more of an elaboration on the church's response, drafted by Athanasius, responding to the heresy of Arianism. And those are the 2 major creeds, but the church also offers dogmas that Catholics are obliged to believe, and these come after creedal statements. Further clarifications, but they don't go, they don't necessarily go into a creed. The lesson 3 on the Great Schism, the church splits largely due to politics, which fostered a greater theological divide between Orthodox and Catholics, and over the Filioque and the papacy, largely, and that there were cultural barriers too that hindered their unity, and we are still stuck in that today. It all kind of climaxed in 1054 when Pope Leo IX excommunicated Patriarch Michael, and Patriarch Michael wanted to reciprocate that. So there's been a divide ever since then, largely due to church politics. Protestant Reformation, don't forget all your Edpuzzle questions there are fair game. The church owned 1/3 of all the land in Europe at the time, very affluent, and we see this in the life of the Pope. Leo X, who was made a cardinal at 13, partied as Pope until his 40th birthday when he kind of realized he was broke. And what did he do? But he made cardinals, and he, to whatever degree is debated, but he oversaw the selling of indulgences. Martin Luther, Augustinian monk, is not going to like this at all for good reason. He's going to nail the 95 Theses to the cathedral door in Wittenberg, and is largely responding to this selling of indulgences, which is wrong. From this platform of fighting the indulgences that the church is offering, Martin Luther promotes these 2 teachings that today largely separate Protestants and Catholics: sola fide and sola scriptura. Y'all know what both of those mean? Only faith saves you, right? You got to be able to explain them. So yeah, make sure you can do that. Martin Luther said, faith alone will save you. Faith alone will get you to heaven. And you don't need to do any other works or X, Y, and Z. And in order to follow Jesus and be, faithful to all that he gave to us, we have Scripture, and that's all we need. We don't need a pope. We don't need leadership. Scripture alone. We don't need this church tradition. We have the Bible. We can read the words of Jesus, and that'll be it. That's all we need. Sola Scriptura was the other doctrine. All right, and that leads us up to today. We're going to learn about Nonco. This is just one slide after this title slide. Auguste Nunco Pelifig, saint from Arneville. He was born in France, actually, in 1888, and would immigrate with his family. He was the baby of the family to Arneville. Now let me explain his nickname Nunco. What is the word? Drop the O. What's the word nunc in French? Uncle. Very good. Uncle Auguste, which kind of Auguste kind of would in the original pronunciation of French would have an O. So think of he was called Uncle Auguste, and so they just kind of combined that and called him Nunco, and that was his nickname. And everyone knew him affectionately as Nunco. Um, and so he was, a great figure and a great uniter of people in the church in Arneville. But that's what I'm going to call him, Nunco. That's what most people know him by. Even today, has anybody heard of him before? This moment, okay. But today, if you're in Arneville, talk to the old people. A lot of them were taught by him. He's still very much a loved figure for reasons I'm about to explain. Okay. All right. So what did he do? After growing up in Arneville, he would go to Natchitoches, or as it is spelled, Natchitoches, to learn how to be a teacher and educator. And so that's what his profession would be. He would be a teacher his entire life in both public and private schools, or public schools for some years, and then he would become a Catholic school, like middle school religion teacher in Arneville, back when Arneville had a Catholic school. Doesn't have one anymore. It was the Little Flower Academy, I think, or Little Flower Catholic School. But even when he was teaching in public schools, as he did for many years, he would teach in the evenings and on weekends catechism to the young kids of the parish, and he would do this for free. At St. John Francis Regis Church, the same parish is still standing today. That's a picture of it at the bottom, the church in Arneville. But he was a big help to the priest and the parish there through teaching a lot of classes. He was what we call a catechist. You can write down this term, which I have on the board if you're not familiar with it. But a catechist is somebody that teaches the faith, someone that teaches the catechism. So every religion teacher you've ever had is a catechist. I'm going to come back to this slide, of course. There's, of course, more to put up here. But I want to take a time out so you can see his house. And this picture is not on the internet. I could only find it on this PDF. This is his house in Arneville, which I'm told is still standing today. It's 2 bedrooms, or 2 rooms, period. And it has no running water or electricity. And he lived in here with a handful of pets. He was said to be a lover of animals for his whole adult life. Now, he certainly wasn't a rich man. Nobody is when you teach middle school and high school. But he was a faithful man, and I'm sure he could have afforded something nicer. But as you're going to see with his life, he embraced poverty. He embraced sacrifice. He loved making sacrifices for souls in purgatory in the church. And so this lifestyle shows you that authenticity. Cough, cough, Joel Osteen. That contrast that we talked about chapters past about authentic Christianity. Not saying you have to live in a shack to be a holy person, but you have to embrace the cross. in whatever way God is calling you to. And Nonco embraced the life of poverty that Jesus had in living in a very small, humble abode. All right. Nunco would be nominated for a pontifical award or a pontifical favors. I forget what they call it exactly, but in that inscription, the bishop of Lafayette would hand him this kind of like award, thanking him for all of his great work to the church. The inscription reads the following, and this is just one part of it. Mr. Pelifig has organized the League of the Sacred Heart. Here is a modern advertisement for the League of the Sacred Heart, or the Sacred Heart League. Some 1,200 members. So Nunco was able to, when you see league, think Club of the Sacred Heart. Nunco would travel house to house by foot and try to offer people to enroll in this League of the Sacred Heart. And he got 1,200 people to sign up to say certain prayers every day, monthly devotionals as well, making reparation, acts of love to the heart of Jesus, consoling the heart of Jesus. Very beautiful devotion there. And so he's promoting this, and he's with great success. 1,200 members, and he would get another 100 people to promote it with him actively. Those are great numbers by today's standards. And he did this 50 years ago. He goes out on foot. That's significant too. Once again, think about that shack of a house he lived in and how he would embrace sacrifice. He would walk from house to house in Arneville, inviting people to join the League of the Sacred Heart. And when it was raining, people would pull the cars over and say, "Hey, Nunco, you want to ride?" He'd say, "No." "Why not? It's raining. Like, just take the ride." He said, "No, I'm offering this up for the souls in purgatory." He freely chose it, He freely entered into that sacrifice of Jesus Christ. And so that was the generosity by which he lived his life. And teaching in a Catholic school, but then he would teach more, which, as a Catholic school teacher, I can say it's hard. I've been asked a handful of times in the past 8 years to teach on weekends, and I say yes half the time, and I say no half the time, because what I tell some priests, like, I'm not going to teach you on the weekends because I do it all week long. It's hard. You need a break. We need the weekends, right? And sometimes I'll do it. Sometimes I won't. I have to figure out what I can do, what I ought to do. But he did it regularly, without pay, without any incentives. It's just very generous of him. So that was basically his life work. His life work is on the board. The last thing I'm going to teach you is about his death. The interesting thing about Nunco is I don't have a big conversion story about when he fell in love with Jesus or Jesus appeared to him. We don't have that. We don't have a moment where he performed a miracle or did some heroic act of charity like dying for somebody. No. He was just everyday sacrificial, part of the town, part of the parish, a guy. There's nothing terribly fancy about him. But nevertheless, he right now has a cause open. So this is how it works right now. His cause was opened up, a couple years ago. But the United States Catholic bishops heard this story in November, and they all voted that he qualifies to become a saint. And so they're going to send his life story, basically, to Rome. And Pope Francis is going to make a judgment on it, most likely, and say, is he okay to go on to become a saint? If Pope Francis says yes, then we have to pray for a miracle. And we need 2 miracles for him to become Saint Nunco or Saint Auguste Pelifig. Okay? But that's what it takes for him to get the official ST in front of his name. It's a process. So that's where he's at today. But it's just such a small, humble story.
Does he have any titles like blessed?
No. We're going to get to those titles, but once the cause gets approved in the Vatican, we would call him venerable or servant of God. And then he gets one miracle, he's blessed. Another miracle, he becomes saint. Yeah, that's what it would take. And those miracles have to be approved by doctors in the Vatican. Vatican's got their own team of doctors that evaluates miracles to make sure that they're miracles and not just really good healings. So he lived a long life. He lived 89 years. 1977 on June 6th, though, and that's important. June 6th on the church calendar is the Feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. That's the devotion that he promoted. And he died on that day. And this is common in many lives of the saints. They die on days that are meaningful to them. And it's almost God's way of affirming their whole life that you served me well. I'll take you back to me on this special day, the Feast of the Sacred Heart, which he spent his whole life, promoting. So that's a beautiful thing right there, you know. So know when the Feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus is. Today we often celebrate it on the first Friday, I believe, in June, but in other years in the church we just keep it on June 6th. And he died in Amelia Manor Nursing Home. Who knows where that is? It's right there. It's right there. Let me show you on the map. It's right there. Y'all see the football field, the open field? Got our parking lot, got our locker room right there. There's the Turlings campus. Amelia Manor Nursing Home is right. I mean, we kick footballs that direction. That's how close it is, to us. And so I was planning on teaching about his life anyways, and then I read that he died in Amelia Manor Nursing Home. I was like, we had a probable saint die in our backyard, which is pretty cool, Like a man left our neighborhood and just went up into heaven, possibly. We don't know if he went to purgatory or not, but that's pretty cool, I think. Fun fact there, died right here in Lafayette. Yeah, so what I did here, where's the base map? There it is. Oh, no, that's not what I want. Okay. So what I wanted to do was this really cool techie lesson about he was born in southern France and then his family immigrated here, and I actually years ago was given a professional development thing on how to do this, and I couldn't get it to work. So I couldn't get it to bounce around. So what I do here though is there's Arnaville, and then up here's Natchitoches where he went to school. He bounced around a little bit down here teaching jobs, but he'd settle in Arnaville, and then he dies where in Lafayette? In our backyard, basically a stone's throw from where I'm teaching this today. Now, the last thing I want, as I pull up a picture of his tombstone, and he's buried in Arnaville. As you look at your mind map for this chapter, why would I pick this potential saint to be the saint of the chapter? This is not a rhetorical question. We're on the same page. What's this chapter about? Let's start there. What? The vision? Okay, the title is One in Belief. Very, very good, Vincent. Very good. So let me summarize the whole chapter for you, and then I'll finish with Nonco. The whole chapter is about the church is united in her common beliefs and her creeds. And I taught you about the creeds and dogmas. And then we have to look at when the church was not one, the Great Schism, Protestant Reformation, and how there's a difference in belief there that causes people to separate. And that's not good for the church or the world. And we even looked at Pope Leo in both the 9th and the 10th, who probably failed the church in some ways. But I finish on a positive note that you have humble souls here in Acadiana that bring people together, that teach the faith, that can show the importance of having a relationship with Jesus. And this keeps people together And it's people like this that help people through the hard times of life that we all have. And so that's why I put Nunco with this chapter, because he taught the faith as a catechist, and he united people in a common belief and promoted the faith. And that kept, the town of Arnoldville very connected, as small of a town it was, putting 1,200 people together in prayer basically every day. It was a beautiful thing. So that's what I want you to realize. You could also look at the authenticity of his poverty in comparison, in contrast to Pope Leo X and all of his fancy riches in the 16th century. So that is the lesson, and that is the chapter.